City battered Burnley thanks in large part to their left side and the fantastic combinations of Doku, O'Reilly and Foden. Conversely, the right side was a little bit lacklustre overall. What were the key reasons for that, particularly for the first 60 or so minutes of the match? What changed in the second half? What were the key storylines throughout the match? That's hopefully what I'm going to explore and cover today. When I saw this lineup and I saw that Savio and Nunes were starting, I didn't really understand how it was going to work on ball, because Nunes is the sort of player who naturally wants to be out on that right side, arriving onto balls rather than necessarily getting involved in the build-up. However, that's ultimately not what happens. Now, what did happen for City going forwards, which did make a lot of sense, City played essentially a front six, basically with 3 number 10s. Why 6 attacking players? Because Burnley, we knew we were going to play with a back 5, have 6 players on that front line, overpower them, make it really tricky for them. Now, this lends itself nicely to this sort of 3-1-6 shape, or maybe more of like a 2-2-6 shape. Again, the question is, where was Nunes going to play, given the fact that Savio was on the pitch and he was obviously going to hold width on that right side? Nunes had this sort of hybrid role in the first 60 or so minutes of the match, where he was technically a right centre-back, but he was also given licence to advance slightly further up the pitch, whereas Guardiola and Diaz maintained their defensive line. A lot of the build-up was going through Nunes, and that right side just generally was a little bit dysfunctional with both Savio and Nunes on the pitch. We'll get into more detail on that later in the video. But for now, let's talk about the wonderful offensive left of City and the fantastic performances of Doku, O'Reilly and Foden in particular. And why did it work so well on that left side? This is just an image of City's formation there. Doku was absolutely sensational in the match and has been fantastic for the past month or so. Now, why is that? I don't think it's as simple as Doku has just randomly overnight decided to become excellent at the football. I do think that it's fair to say on a micro level, like Doku has to a degree improved just individually. However, I think the changes are more so on a macro and overall level of the environment around him. There were a number of occasions last season. The best example I can give is City against Liverpool at the Etihad, where Doku would arrive into a really good position, attacking the box, and there's just not enough options for him. On that day, it was only Foden in the box, and he was being picked up by Van Dijk and Konate. There were not enough players attacking the far post, the near post, crashing the box, lurking on the edge of the box. If you give Doku options, you're going to have a good time. If you give Doku runners, you're going to have a good time. Doku using his gravity, sucking players in, and then him either beating them on his own, or O'Reilly and or Foden making those underlapping runs. In the case of O'Reilly, both underlapping and overlapping. Foden pointing to Doku. Doku's holding up the play here. He's making that underlapping run. The touch from Foden isn't quite there, but as early as the first minute, you could see that from City and Doku specifically. Every single time he came forward, like Walker looked absolutely terrified. This is why we should never lose faith in Doku. Even here, you can say he rides his luck if you so desire, but how many players can go from here to here in a second? Sometimes you make your own luck, and sometimes by being direct and aggressive, you make your own luck in that sense. And Foden's positioning is really good here because he forces the goal. Foden and Doku have a wonderful connection and chemistry with one another. That's been evident for a while. I don't think it's a coincidence that City's best performances have been when they have both shared the pitch together. Building on that point about Doku being a magnet and plays being pulled over to him, he's not even up against a defender here, so he's always going to win this 1v1 battle. All the options, all the bodies in the box. This is what Doku wants. This is how you're going to get the best out of him. He drives into the space and look, all of a sudden he has all of these options. And he picks out Nico here, who plays it back for Reinders, and this is a really good opportunity for a player of Reinders' quality shooting outside the box. The shot isn't particularly good, but look at how much distance there is between him and the Burnley defensive unit, and that's all because of the attention that he's been drawing. That didn't lead to a goal. The decision-making was absolutely spot on. As much as I'm applauding Doku, there are still, of course, some areas for improvement. This should have resulted in a goal, I believe. So Foden intercepts the play. Haaland passes it into Doku. And what I do like about Doku, just touching on that aggression from him, I do think that he's being a bit more assertive in his shooting as well, because despite what people think, I believe Doku actually has a pretty good shot on him. We just don't see it enough. I actually do think he needs to shoot more. And we have so far seen this to an extent this season. Here he does go for the shot, but really he should be squaring it out to Foden instead. So it's really good to see that he's happy to take more shots, Doesn't have to be the case all the time. But either way, really good play from Doku again. I'm going to keep going with my Doku praise because I was so happy with his performance up against Walker. And by this point, late in the game, like, Walker's just terrified of Doku, keeps backing off. He gets wrong-footed, slightly lucky with the cross because it does take a little bit of a deflection. But it's that point of you make your own luck. If you stack the box with options, with bodies, you're more likely to ride that luck successfully. Haaland in the box, Bob in the box, Bernardo Foden attacking the box as well. I don't think that's just a coincidence that it happens to fall to Haaland. In the past, it may have well been that Doku receives the ball here and then there's no movement around him and then nothing happens and then we can't appreciate Doku for the sort of player he is. But look what happens when a player makes a run off him. So O'Reilly here is desperate to get into the correct position and to support Doku, and all of a sudden, O'Reilly's crossed it for Haaland. This is City's second goal, and it's ultimately the goal that wins the game. It's the most important. Keep an eye on O'Reilly again and look at his movements. He's desperate to support Doku, and also pay attention to Núñez's positioning. Reinders has dropped back. That's allowed Núñez to actually advance. I'll get on to Núñez in a moment. So O'Reilly's providing that run. He's giving that space to Doku. Doku once again has Walker on toast every single time. Foden's also advanced. And just like, look at this, still like a season ago, these options wouldn't have been here for City. There weren't enough players attacking that box in the way that Foden and O'Reilly are doing it right now. This is a massive benefit to a player like Doku, giving him more options and opportunities to succeed. And here he finds Foden. This is a ridiculous bit of control by Foden. This then leads to Guardiola punting it out to Haaland, who had a brilliant game. Could have done a whole video about Haaland, but I wanted to focus more so on the flanks today. And then Núñez with the goal. And I was very happy that Núñez did get the goal because I did feel up until that point he struggled. The second goal stemmed from that relationship between Doku, Foden and O'Reilly, with O'Reilly providing that underlapping run. This time for the third goal, the exact same relationship between those three players, but O'Reilly providing the overlapping run. And if O'Reilly overlaps and provides width, that means that Doku's now going to have an opportunity to attack the centre, where he is arguably the most dangerous. Doku is capable of playing as a touchline winger, but that's not the same as you want him to only be out wide. If you can give him access to those central areas, then why not do it where he can utilise his ridiculous dribbling? If it's a contest of Doku versus Walker, there is only going to be one winner every single time in 2025. Walker has no idea what to do with Doku, so he's horrendously out of position here. Again, credit to O'Reilly for his wide positioning, allowing Doku to do this. Walker lunges, Doku makes a mug of him, plays out to Foden. O'Reilly, Doku, Foden. Don't think that's a coincidence. And this comes out to Núñez, who is here in the position that he is going to be best in. And this is where I want to now move on to the right side. For the past couple of games, the right side has basically been a non-factor going forward. You can argue this is unfair because this third goal is an own goal, so it doesn't actually technically produce any expected goals. But this is obviously a very fantastic chance created from that right side. Savio, I felt, struggled overall, but in the first 30 minutes, I thought he played quite well. He was doing really well 1v1ing his opposition fullback. Didn't really lead to any shots, however. And as I alluded to earlier, when you have Núñez and Savio both on the pitch, Núñez naturally should be offensively in this sort of area, but you can't do that if Savio is on the pitch. Now, you can do that a little bit more, or a lot more, if Bob is on the pitch, because now all of a sudden you've got Bob, who is a more natural interior player wanting to access those more central zones, and that is how this goal is scored. Savio would not normally be in this position. He would normally be in the position Núñez is. Núñez would be probably where Reinders is. This is where you're going to get the best version of Núñez going forwards, but we didn't see enough of it up until that substitution. It's just so obvious that Núñez and Bob have a far better chemistry with one another than Núñez and Savio. Maybe it was just a one-off, but either way, it is a little bit worrying that the past two games, we do have the outlier of it being that Arsenal game where it was a very weird setup from City, but there was 0 expected goals created in the Arsenal game. There was only 0.03 in the Burnley game, only 11 compared to 23 off that left side, and even 19 in the centre. So the right side is definitely an area that City need to sort out ASAP, and there's a bit of an imbalance there. Like, the left side is this purring, fantastic, efficient machine. The right side, less so. Whilst Núñez did do well when that change happened, why didn't it work as much beforehand? In that first half, his touches were far more central. Second half, the touches were far wider. So let's address those moments where it wasn't quite as good. So here he is picking up that sort of right centre-back area. And the problem with Núñez in these sorts of areas is that he's not really going to be able to contribute to build up, like, at all. You almost need to use him in the same way we used Walker in that 23-24 season, towards the back end of the season, where he was almost exclusively being used as a player who would run onto chances rather than having to create chances himself or get involved in deeper stages of build-up himself. He's not a useful asset in these sorts of areas. I just picked out this moment here because there should be no danger here, and yet out of nowhere, his touch is pretty poor. His decision-making is also poor. Only thanks to his fantastic pace and athleticism is he able to get back. But there was no reason to lose the ball there. And sadly, it's a recurring theme with Núñez. And it's why I didn't really get why he was given this sort of role in build-up, because that's not really his game. Now, when I was in the stadium, I think it was this moment, I spotted Núñez and Pep having a bit of a to-do. So Núñez plays it to Savio. Now, if this was Doku on that left side, you would have O'Reilly and Foden supporting him, underlapping, overlapping, whatever it may be. Now, you could argue that Reinders should be that sort of player to help, but I feel like he's occupied with this Burnley player here. So what I would like to see, really, is Núñez, as soon as he plays that ball, to now progress up the pitch and support Savio, because right now Savio is isolated and he's got no support. Unlike Doku, who had lots of support on that left side, Savio right now is all on his own. But Núñez doesn't. He just stays static. He's not really offering anything offensively here or helping Savio at all, when he could be stationed more like here, making runs in behind like that. Alas, that's not what happened. And I believe, as Savio is just forced to go sideways and then the ball is recycled, I believe that at this point, Pep is shouting at Núñez, saying, you probably should have attacked there, because Núñez turns around and he does this. I think that's the moment I saw in the stadium anyway. I just thought that was interesting to note. And thankfully, that did change in the second half. And that actually is how that second goal was scored, with Núñez actually supporting his teammate and getting forward. So there's still a lot of work to do for City. I feel like this was a really good win, but against the better sides, we're going to have to address that imbalance off the right side. The left side's looking really good. Foden, O'Reilly, Doku, Guardiola. You've also got Aït-Nouri to come back into the side at some point as well. Marmoush as well. The right side, I feel like, is up for grabs. Not only in respect of right back, but also in respect of the right wing position. We still have Cherki to come back into the side, and I suspect that this season he's got to try to make that sort of area his own. He's not going to displace Foden based on his current form. There's no room for him to play off ball in midfield, I don't think. So I do think he's going to have to try to address that right side. And it'll be really interesting to see what City do longer term as the season progresses and as players come back to full fitness. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. A little bit of a tricky one to analyse because of how dominant City were ultimately in the match. I could have touched on some of the slight out of possession issues that City had. There were also some build-up issues that led to the goal, but I felt the main storyline from today was City's great left, lacklustre right side in that first half in particular. Really hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a like on the video. It's free and it helps support the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and in particular, thank you to all of my highest tier channel members, Tony, Spartacus, Silver Splits the Blue, Ethan Larios, Austin King, and Rowan.